Hey, Sub-Tours. My name is William Tingle of Sub2Deals.com. I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub2 Deals show where we talk about all things subject to. Occasionally, we'll cover other real estate investing topics, but it will always be something to help you with your real estate investing business. Today is another episode in our Real Investor series where we feature real investors sharing real stories and actual deals. These guys are investors doing deals all across the country with no boot camps or courses to sell you. They just have real tips and strategies and things that are working today in their businesses and in their markets. They share them all, and these things can work for you too. So pay attention and take lots of notes. My guest today is Randy Thomason. Randy is a real estate investor in Little Rock, Arkansas, and has been investing for over 30 years. He's been full-time for over 10 years, and he's just killing it down there in Arkansas. So I'm really excited to have him on here today. He's got a lot of experience and a lot of information to share with you. Randy, welcome to the Sub2 Deals show.
Honored to be here. Followed you for several years now, and I'm just honored to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. I tell you, I've known you for a little while now. And I mean, it's just, you know, some of the deals you share with us in the coaching group and on the forum. I mean, I'm just really excited to talk to somebody that's really out there getting it. Tell us a little bit about your background, you know, what you did before real estate and your family. And just
all right. Well, started out of college, got totally segued out of college. I was planning on going to Russia to study sports psychology when a friend of mine, dad, saw me in a grocery store in my senior year in college and said, "You're coming to work for me in the investment banking business," which I had no clue about, although I'd bought a few stocks as a teenager, and taught me into doing that. And so I worked for a small boutique New York City Wall Street company here in Little Rock. They moved the headquarters to Little Rock after they bought it, and learned sales. That's where I learned sales, that and from my dad. And so did that for about 5 or 6 years. And then my dad retired from as a banker in the computer technology side of the bank and started a company. And so I went to work with him, and we grew that company from a startup to having offices in 42 states. And that's where I polished some of my sales skills, because we did business with, I think it's 33 of the top 50 banks in the country. And grew that and then sold it in the early 2000s and retired for a year or so, and then bought a property management company down in Orlando, Florida, doing vacation home rentals in the Disney area. And that's where the bug reignited itself, because I was interested in real estate even back in college, but that's when the bug really hit me. And in 2010, after a serious divorce, I just went full-time into real estate investing, and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I tell you, it's amazing. I almost expected you to tell me that you got a Clayton Sheets course.
I did. In college, I got a Clayton Sheets, and I borrowed money from a relative to buy
it. I know, you know, it's really funny. I found that to be pretty common that most people that have been in the business for over 20 years at some point had a Clayton Sheets course. I think every investor that's out there right now got started. You know, and it's really funny. I mean, you know, Carlton died, I guess, last year. That was one of my bucket things was to meet him. But I never got to do that. But it's interesting, you know, people talk about the Clayton Sheets course and they kind of laugh about it or whatever. But I thought it was a great beginner's course because it taught nothing but ethical, honest ways to invest and covered every way under the sun.
And motivational too.
Yeah.
You know, it covered all the bases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really great. And I bought probably really a half a dozen, I would say, houses in foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, and found copies of the Clayton Sheets course in the closet. Most of them still in cellophane. It's amazing.
Yep.
You know, they had the keys to their problems right there, but they just didn't bother.
Right. It's funny you say that, because one of the people that I bought a subject to property from is now one of my coaching students, because he says, because I bought it sub 2, and he goes, "I see how it worked. I want to do that myself. And so he's bought his first property already. And you know him, Jay. And we talked about once before. He bought a property and is working pretty hard right now. So.
Well, that's great. I know. I said, actually, I think when you introduced me to Jay, he joined our group. And I told him that I wanted to get together and talk with him sometime. We haven't done that yet. But, yeah, he's got quite an interesting story. And I'm telling you, when you see people, I don't remember the exact situation, but I remember thinking, gosh, that's just another example. If this guy can get out there and do this, why can't he?
Yeah, there's no excuse for anybody in this country not to be able to make it. And I understand mental deficiencies or something like that, or a physical, medical issue. But Jay's, he was born with issues, his feet and his hands. He can't hold a cell phone, but he can still dial a cell phone or dial a phone with the mouse with his foot and make calls. His mouth works great. And 99% of this business is talking and listening.
It is. And listening more than you talk, really.
Yes.
That's a hard lesson for newbies to learn. They talk way too much and way too much.
It's a hard thing for people like me to learn too. I fall back into old habits.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, and I tell people this all the time, listening is so important. What the seller tells you, the deal is in the story. It really is. How to structure it, how to buy it.
That's the, I don't care if you're trying to do a wholesale deal or a subject to deal or any sort of a deal. You got to listen to their story and figure out how to solve the problem. If you just throw money at them, more often than not, it's not going to solve the problem, so you're not going to get a deal.
Right. Well, so an interesting start there for you. What actually sparked your interest in this?
Well, money. That was first because I'm an introvert by nature. I was shy. I had a hard time dating in high school and college and stuff like that. Even though I was a star athlete and lots of people, I was just kind of shy. And when I got into the investment banking business, boy, did I get a rude awakening to cold calling. And so that helped get me over it. And, I still have problems getting in front of a new group. But the real estate part of it was, I've been fascinated with money since I was a teenager. And, I worked when I started at age 12, teaching swim lessons. I was a competitive swimmer growing up, and I started teaching swim lessons at age 12. And so money drove me, and, I'd read stuff. And one of the things I read early on was the majority of the people that are millionaires and, now billionaires, was that they might make money in real estate, but the majority of them made money some other way, such as the Carnegies, the Kennedys, or whatever. But once they made it, then they would move a big chunk of their money into real estate. And that made me think, if that's what they're doing, I need to be exploring that. And so that got me on the path of exploring it a little bit. And in college, like I said, bought that Clayton Sheets deal, and the light bulb went off. So, and from there, it's been it was a slow start going in the beginning, but, and I knew, in the mid 2000s, when I bought the property management company, I could leverage that into, investing, and that's what happened. So, but, some of us start slower. I'd rather be the tortoise than the hare that never finishes, and the tortoise always finishes. And so I start slower usually, but once I get the hang of things, it's like I don't stop. And that's the thrill of the kill. I love the thrill of the kill, doing deals that nobody else can figure out how to do. And if I can do that, it's like, yeah.
That is the best. I'll tell you, and I have that same thing going on. For me, what I discovered was it's locating it, just finding the deal, putting it all together, making it work, getting it under contract, and I tend to kind of lose interest in it.
Yeah, I think we're brothers from the same mother there.
And I go along with what you say too. Sub twos are great, the simple wholesale flip or something like that. but I got a taste for, something a little bit different way back when I was working in Macon and did a partial interest deal. And when you start doing some of that super creative stuff, I mean, this particular one that I talk about, there were 4 siblings and the parents had passed, and one brother was living in the house and wouldn't move and wouldn't pay the taxes, and the other 3 were just sick of it. And when you buy a house, let's say, for example, it's worth 200, but you're buying partial interest, and of course we all know pieces aren't worth what they would be equally when you're having to buy them in pieces. So if each part were worth 50,000, but you're able to buy those parts for, say, 10,000 a piece, and then deal with the final sibling living in the house. Now those things get really interesting.
Yep. So
you talk to most investors about things like that, their head blows up.
Yeah, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and so I mean, depending on the issue, I would tackle that maybe, but it's not for newbies.
No, that's absolutely. And a lot of times on these things you learn as you go, but they're really, they're not the plain vanilla. That's for sure. That is for sure.
Yeah, that's true. And let me follow up. When I said newbie, that's a term of endearment, because we've all been newbies, and I love newbies because if you're a newbie, you usually haven't gotten the bad mindset yet. And so you can learn fresh and learn all the good stuff. If you've tried to do this or been a realtor, you got a lot of stuff you have to unlearn. So I love newbies.
Yeah, and I was super lucky because I got started in a market where we were far away from family. The internet wasn't as prolific as it is today. We didn't have, Facebook wasn't a thing. So I wasn't surrounded by people telling me, oh, that won't work, that's illegal and that sort of thing. I literally bought my first couple of houses with a Clayton Sheets course, and nobody to tell me things wouldn't work. So
that's always a good thing.
By the time I got around anybody that said, "Oh man, that's illegal" or anything, I'd already bought a couple of houses, and I knew that was garbage.
Yep. The crab syndrome. They're always trying to pull you back down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, nobody's getting out of here. You're staying with us.
Yep.
Exactly right. Well, I mean, you said you've been investing for over 30 years, but tell us when you got started and how you got started.
Well, my first house was in 1987. It's a house I bought to move into, but it needed a little bit of work. And it turned out my first house I get sued over. But we bought it from a lady who is divorced, and we assumed her mortgage. That was back when FHAs could be assumed. And we assumed her mortgage and lived there, finished fixing it up while we lived there. Had a couple of children during that time, and outgrew the house. Bought another house out of a foreclosure auction that totally had to be gutted. And so we were working on that one and decided, well, we might as well put this one up for sale because it might take 6 months or longer to sell. Wouldn't you know it, the first person that came through bought it, paid full price. But we took a second mortgage on it, which was very common back then because interest rates were high, and compared to today's terms especially. But so we sold it and moved into the other house before we even had it completed. We had no bathrooms. There was a hole in the floor. My wife at the time was 9 months pregnant, so we had a bucket, and we used the neighbor's house and everything. So we finished that house, and that was our first house. We sold it. And then at the 5-year mark, the ex-husband sued us and a bunch of other people, claiming that he didn't sign the deed that the judge ordered him to sign in the divorce. And just surprisingly, his attorney's dead, the judge was dead, and so there was nobody to prove one way or the other. So of course I had title insurance, so I turned it over to the title. They took care of everything. Turned out after about a year, the new judge said, well, here's the deal, Mr. Husband, ex-husband, is the judge ordered you to sign it, if you didn't sign it, you're in contempt of court. I'm going to throw you into jail. And if you did sign it, then you're committing a fraud. So I'm going to throw you in jail for that. So I'm going to give you one other option. You can dismiss your suit and make this all go away, or you can go to jail one way or the other. So needless to say, it was all done and over with. And that house went by the way. And, and so that was the first house. The second house was like 3 years later. The next house wasn't for like 8 years later. So it had been a slow process. And then in 2010, boom, just full time.
Yeah. Right. Well, tell us a little bit about your business model now. You operate a lot like I do.
Yeah, a lot like you do. In fact, you were instrumental in changing some of the things in my business model. We had a couple of discussions about some things, but, probably 80% of my deals currently are subject to or owner finance of some sort. We do some 0% owner finance deals. I think it was 3 years ago, we bought 15 houses with 0% financing. And from people that were like landlords that were very knowledgeable. They had owned 40, 50 properties. They knew, but the price was more important to them than getting the interest.
Yeah.
And so I'll overpay for a house if I get 0% interest in the right payments. But subject to is majority of my business. We use private lenders. So we buy houses for cash. We wholesale houses. I try to do 1 or 2 wholesale deals a month, but I'm not marketing just for that. I'm just marketing for deals. And then I let the deal dictate what it is. Is it a wholesale? Is it a rehab? Is it a subject to? And I kind of moved away from rentals the last couple of years. I don't like the politics in the country these days. Renters' rights trumping everything else. And in fact, City of Little Rock is going, in my opinion, going the way of a Baltimore or whatever. I'm in the process of selling every one of my properties in Little Rock and turning them to owner finance or whatever, which is going to hurt the city because less rentals in the city causes a supply and demand problem. So, but I can redeploy those assets into another city surrounding Little Rock. So, but I like at my age, I'm older than you, as we discussed earlier. I'm 60 now, and don't particularly like dealing with renters, although I screen very well. I've only had to evict 2 tenants in the last 20 years that I put in my properties. I've evicted several more where I've acquired a tenant with a property, but I screen very well. But the model of going to where I'm owner financing on the backside just fits me at my stage in life better. I don't take calls in the middle of the night. I don't have repairs. Once I sell it, and most everything sells within a week to 10 days, you get that big chunk of money up front. You get almost, sometimes even more cash flow, but you do get more net cash flow every month because you don't have rentals and vacancies, and then a big chunk on the backside. So that, at my age fits my model very, very well, and, I've adjusted some of those things because of some of the things that I learned from you, that I had a misconception on a few things, and you brought it to light, and I investigated, make sure that you were telling me the truth, and sure enough. And so I've adjusted those and gone from there.
I tell you, that's what I tell people all the time. I used to be a transaction engineer, literally. We had rentals, we had Section 8 rentals, we did lease options, we sold on lease options, we wholesaled and rehabbed and retailed, and I'm telling you, 10 years ago, I switched to absolutely nothing but sub-2 owner finance.
Yeah.
You're in and out of that deal and things, and you're talking about foreclosing. Well, isn't that harder and this and that? Not if you just try to work with people.
Yeah.
Well, you can go the lawyer way, but you try to work it out.
Yep. The what you said earlier about finding, buying, structuring the deal, getting it closed, and then it's harder to keep interest. So I've kind of gotten into that model too. So selling it quickly with an owner finance, in a very short time frame solves that issue rather than a rental.
Yep, right. Rentals, I say, be the landlord, not the landlord.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I love that term.
that's what we like. That's what we do. Well, I know that you're doing a lot of deals. I mean, we talked about that several times in the coaching group and forum. What would you say right now that your best source for leads would be? Now, and I usually like to ask investors this that I talk to. I say, if your life depended on generating quality leads in the next 24 hours, I mean, if you needed money right now and you had to go out and put some stuff together, what would you be doing right now to generate those leads?
Well, the top two things I think at the moment would be the pre-foreclosure list, but often we find, as you know, that most of those people have already written it off and they're either head in the sand, ostrich syndrome, that they're going to win the lottery the day before the auction, or they've already moved out and they don't want to deal with it because it's a bad memory in their past. And so those are sometimes harder deals to do, but when you get one, it's usually a pretty good deal. The other one that, I like probates. I do a lot of probates, but the other one I think is a pretty darn good one. And if I had limited amount of time, limited amount of money, it would be looking for VA loans where the owner is absentee, as far as like maybe they're renting it, they got to transfer. They hate being an out-of-state landlord. They're just doing it because they couldn't sell. Those people are prime for a sub-2 because they just want to be done and they're ready. Most of them are ready to walk away for what they owe on it. In fact, the one we just closed yesterday on the sales side, we bought a couple of weeks before, was exactly that. The guy moved to your neck of the woods. He's down in Georgia and his house was here. He bought it 5 years ago, brand new. He put a renter in it with a property manager, hates it, because he's negative cash flowing with what the property manager's charging him. And we talked to him and he was willing to sell it for what he owed on it, which was $145. We sold it, closed on it yesterday for $175 with a $15,000 down payment. So, we put $14,000 in our pocket. The renter moved out almost immediately. And they'd only been there 3 months. They moved out, so we were happy.
Right. How, if I can ask, how are you trying to target your VAs? Now, you used to be able to do that in PropStream, but it seemed like they've updated recently where it's really rare to find something listed in there as a VA. So how are you targeting VAs?
Well, there's a few different ways because we have two bases here. We have a Army base, which is if you're in the Army more than 2 years and even less than 2 years, you're coming through this base at some point during your career. It's a training base and everything. So pretty much everybody in the Army comes through this base. The other one is we have an Air Force base here that's a C-130 base. It's a training base also. So if you're a C-130 pilot, you're coming through Little Rock or Jacksonville. And so we target those areas. We look for, you can buy a VA list from some of the list brokers. I only want VA loans. You can do that. Another way is, we target an area. I like to target areas that are were built after 2012. And then I skip trace them, get the owners' names and everything. You can, and then I'm looking for absentee owners, and I look up the information or have it looked up, and you can see, is it an FHA or a VA loan? Because, the absentee owners in those areas, the odds are that they're probably military. So, and then we go from there.
Who are you finding these days to be the best list service?
The best what?
List service.
I don't buy a lot of lists, but List Source, has always been the standard. Atom Data, and I think Atom Data provides a lot of the information to other companies. So those two are probably the two primary ones for me when I do look at a list. But I mean, there's so much stuff out there that I really haven't bought a list. Ooh, it's probably been over a year since I bought any list, and it was a very small, defined list. There's so much information out there. PropStream, I've got that. I use it kind of daily to do some investigation. I don't use it to looking for deals, although I should be. But I've got enough other sources that, being at a higher level, you got access to some things that newer people probably don't have access to and stuff. But you build relationships and stuff like that.
The PropStream's great. I had actually stopped using it for a while. They had some real issues, but I think they've got those situated now. And I mean, it's an awesome tool, and the price, I mean, it's incredible. Great. Speaking of tools, do you have any other favorite tools that you use in your business that you can share with us, things that make your job easier?
My eyes and ears are the best tools that I can tell anybody to develop. Learning how to listen more than you talk, and learning how to say the right things at the right time, the negotiating, the probing questions, the I don't like saying it like this, but pouring a little salt in the wound to ratchet up the pain a little bit, and then solving their problem or helping them discover the problem that you want, or the solution to the problem that you want them to find, by excluding the other solutions that won't work for them. Like, oh, can you go get a HELOC loan on your house? Well, obviously they can't. They're already in default. Can you borrow money from family or friends? Well, most likely not, because they probably would have already done that. But when they check off all those boxes and you're the only solution left, they sell themselves. So, but the other tools, PropStream, Deal Machine, I use it when I go out to look at a property. I always try to get there early. My mama taught me early on in life. Of course, she's older, so she was in the time of the trains and not so much of the planes. Was if you're 2 hours early, you can wait on the train. If you're 1 minute late, it's already gone and left you, and it's not stopping for you. And so I always try to get to an appointment early. I can always wait to get there right on time that way. And so I'll drive the neighborhood of the house I'm looking to do, to buy, and I'll use Deal Machine to pick up 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more houses. We use Carrot. We've had websites for years. I used to have a Carrot site with a previous investor / partner, and when we split, he kind of killed that site, and I couldn't resurrect it. So we started a new site recently, and we're actually going through it. And my guy, that's my back end social media guy, we're documenting step by step what we're doing, because as you know, I own and run the ArkREIA here, the Real Estate Investor Association. So we're documenting how to start a brand new website and going through step by step all the SEO and all the things you got to do it, so that it won't be as scary for people. And showing, okay, we had 0 people here. 2 weeks from now, we had 50 people look at it. A month from now, we had 150 people look at it, and 1 lead source come in. So we're kind of documenting the flow of it over a year. I love Carrot. They've got a tremendous amount of information on their podcast and stuff like that. I'm trying to think some of the other ones I use. Of course, skip tracing, and there's a ton of skip tracers out there, different price levels. Texting service, I would caution everybody on texting, because if you do the wrong thing to the wrong person, you're going to be paying a fine, and that fine can be multiplied many a times if some class action suit gets filed against you. But the biggest thing is either you or somebody that's working for you, a VA or somebody, picking up the phone and calling people. Of course, there's mailing services. I've used Click to Mail and Yellow Letter Headquarters, and we've done our own mailers, hand addressed and stuff. But now it's pretty much calling and texting is what I do. A few letters here and there, but and door knocking.
Yeah, door knocking's great. And I used to do a lot of that when when I was in Macon. And we bought pre-foreclosures every month as a result of it. And I found it was easy to do because most investors are afraid.
Yeah. That's well, if you're an introvert, you got to introvert versus extrovert. You got to figure out what your skills are and what you're comfortable doing. If you're an introvert, you probably don't want to do door knocking. You're probably not going to do cold calling, or at least you're going to hate every minute of it. Do what is tailored to your skills and your personality. There's plenty of things to do. You just have to get good at it.
That's right. All right, that's a lot of tools there. I'll tell you, PropStream, I know, Deal Machine. What do you use anything for follow-up? We just a couple of months ago started using ArkREIA Black Book. I mean, it's great. I don't know if you, my follow-up for years was a yellow pad. You may be the same way.
Yeah, Spiral Notebook, yellow pad was in the past. I used ArkREIA Black Book when it first started. I was one of the first people on it back, what was that, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, whatever it was. And I dropped it, probably shouldn't have. And it's come a long way since then too, but technology has too. Actually, I just yesterday signed a contract with InvestorFuse. I've been researching pretty much every single CRM system out there, and there may be some better ones out there, but it didn't have some of the features that I demanded to be in my thing. And I think InvestorFuse checked pretty much all my boxes. Now we'll see over the next 30, 60, 90 days if I'm still there, but I think it's going to do what I need to do.
All right.
And it's their version 3. It's not Podio based. That's the other thing is, I've used Podio, but you've always got an issue when you customize it, because then you're relying upon somebody else to fix a problem that you caused. And believe me, I know how to cause problems.
Yeah, I know. I looked at Podio a year or so ago, and I mean, it just gave me a headache.
Yeah.
Got to do something besides yellow pad.
Yep. And with me kicking up my volume right now, I had to go to a good CRM that has the follow-up, the trickle, the text follow-up, all that stuff. So I'm excited about getting that installed this coming week and going from there.
Okay, man, great information. Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Randy's going to share with us his criteria when evaluating a sub-2 and how he decides if the deal's going to work for him or not. So you guys stay with us, and we'll be back in just a minute.
The Sub-2 Deals Show with your host, Sub-2 expert William Tingle. We'll be right back. Have you ever had a seller give you a house? It's a pretty awesome experience. If a seller wanted to give you a house today, would you know what needed to be done to make the deal happen? Would you like to learn how? The Ultimate Sub-2 Guidebook will show you exactly what you need to get those deeds and sell those houses with seller financing. Join the thousands of other investors across the country who learned how to get the deed with the Ultimate Sub-2 Guidebook. Get the Ultimate Sub-2 Guidebook today at sub2deals.com. Back to the show, the Sub-2 Deals Show, with your host, Sub-2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub-2ers, we're back here with Randy Thomason. Randy is talking to us about his amazing business he's got going on down there in Little Rock, Arkansas, buying a bunch of houses and just giving us a ton of information. We've talked about tools that he uses in the business and how he generates leads, and just a lot of great information. When we left off, we were going to talk about his criteria for evaluating a sub-2 deal and deciding if it's something that he even wants or not. So, Randy, tell me, when you generate leads and you get sellers on the phone, what makes the difference for you? How do you decide whether it's going to be a pass or fail?
Well, I'm probably a little different than a lot of people in some ways, but I follow the rules that the best investors make. Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. That's number one priority that I look at. Now, I will buy properties that don't have cash flow if they have extenuating circumstances. A 15-year mortgage that's 6 or 7 years already into it. It's only got 8 years left and it's flipped. So now I'm getting all principal paid down. Or or there's something like that that's an extenuating circumstance. But cash flow is number one. And then can I make the numbers work? Interest rate, down payment, length of the loan. When does it flip from more interest to more principal? I play with those numbers a lot. My best friend is an Excel spreadsheet on mortgage, pay downs and everything. And I probably spend an hour or two a day running what if scenarios on particular deals. How can I buy this? If I do this, will this make this deal work? If I do this, will this be a better scenario? That is probably you're talking about tools. That is probably my most important tool to make deals happen, because it comes down to cash flow. Do the numbers work? And so, a 30-year loan versus a 40-year loan. I even bought a 40-year loan on a sub-2 not too long ago. It'll cash flow $500 a month.
Right.
So and it's only a year into the 40-year loan, but it'll cash flow. I won't be alive at that time, but
Was this an owner finance scenario, or was that an institutional 40-year note?
It was an institutional. It was a modification.
Yeah.
And so it still had equity in it. The catching up the mortgage and everything like that was $9,000. It was supposed to have been $6,000 until the last moment. The bank said, "Oh, we forgot this fee," and another $3,000 in attorney's fees. But the balance is like $83,000. ARV is like $160, and we got to put a roof on it and put new carpet in it, and then we'll owner finance it and probably make $500 cash flow and get $7,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 down on it, and that'll cover the roof and the carpet. So
I ask about that 40-year note because people always give me the side eye when I say I seller finance 40 years. And that 40-year note, but I mean,
it's a lot of the bank mortgages that they modify, they convert to 40 years. So, and that was one of the things I learned from you was I was doing 30-year owner financing, and you kept talking 40 years, and I questioned you about that, and then I went and researched it, and then I saw some modifications at 40 years. I said, hey, if the banks can do it, we can do it.
Exactly right. Everybody, for some reason, they've hung on to the fact that Dodd-Frank won't allow it. Dodd-Frank, you can do a 100-year note. I mean, there's nothing in there about what has to be the term.
Right.
So if you're concerned about that sort of thing.
Yeah. And it pays off big time down the road.
Well, doesn't it? I mean, it's really, your buyer gets a little bit lower monthly payments, and but what it does for you on the back end is amazing.
Yep. My kids and wife will be extremely happy when I die.
Oh my goodness. All right.
I mean, it's cheaper than buying an insurance policy, a term insurance policy, so.
That's for sure. Okay. So give us an example. I know you got a lot of deals working there. So give us one that you're working on right now. Tell us about it, how you found it. And,
okay. Well, you're probably talking sub-2 since this is a sub-2 show.
We prefer those.
Yeah. We're closing on a wholesale deal today, this afternoon. And, it was a driving for dollars lead, and we're getting a $10,000 check on a $50,000 purchase price property. So, love those. That pays the bills month to month. But then the sub-2 deals, we just closed the one yesterday on the sales side. We got a $15,000 check. It was a military transfer that he didn't like being a landlord. Sold it $145. We sold it for $175. Got 15 down. Put it on a 40-year note. It's a Hispanic, non-legal immigrant. We double checked with the attorney. We can sell legally to them. They have their tax issues because they're not going to be able to deduct their interest taxes off their taxes because they're probably not filing a tax return. But that's not our problem. And our attorney told us, we had an addendum done that said, you're responsible for all your taxes and anything, and we're responsible for ours, and neither of the two shall meet. And so we put it out on a 40-year note. It's a nice family. He's a hard worker. He makes more than enough money. And so we're, our job is to help people. That's the way I look at it. We help people. We help people when we buy properties, get out of a bad situation. And we help people that can't get a loan for whatever the reason is. Maybe they're self-employed. Maybe there's a job transfer. Maybe it was a divorce that damaged their credit. I think we've all been there. Most people in America have been there. In this particular case, it was an immigrant here that is a hard worker, and we were happy to help him out. So, but yeah, there's deals around every corner. There's a deal of the year every month. You just have to find it and discover it.
Totally agree with that. Tell us about your most unusual deal. And you've been doing this a while, so I'm sure you've got an interesting story. I've heard stories about murder for hire people and everything else. Tell us about your most unusual deal, the one that had the most moving parts.
Well, I'm dealing with one right now. We're trying to get closed on the purchase side. That the son who was the guardian over the mother lived in the house, was an alcoholic, and there's over 2,000 beer cans in this house.
Wow.
And all the trash was bagged, but it was all in the house. Probably 6 months worth of trash. And the other son that lives a good ways away came and visited mom and saw the house, and holy cow, went to attorney, got an emergency hearing the next day, got that son removed as a guardian, got himself appointed temporary guardian, moved the mom into a nursing home because she was, Alzheimer's and stuff like that. And the other son got kicked out of the house. And so we're going through the court proceedings on all that right now because he can't sign the document, even though he's guardian, until he gets power of attorney. He can't sign the contract that we've got in front of him and the judge to sell the house. We've already structured the price. We've done everything like that. And it's a it'll be my most profitable deal probably in 4 years. But the bad son broke back into the house sometime in the last week or so, took all the trash and emptied it all over the house, cut all the wires that were exposed in the house, garage door openers, air conditioning unit, stole the outside unit on the air conditioning unit, brought bags and bags of dog poop and emptied all over the house. It's opened all the windows and the door so it rained inside. They've done everything. So, and I say it's the ex-son. That's the only person we could come up with. That's my opinion. Can't get sued for your opinion. But that's who we think did all this, because nobody else, it's on 17 acres. It's kind of set back from the road. Nobody else even knows the house is there except for the other son. So that's an interesting one. The one where we couldn't get a judge to sign off on a deal, even though the clerk kept telling us he's set to sign it, he's set to sign it, he's set to sign it. It was a probate that also had a foreclosure. And I had to go sit in the clerk's office to get it signed off on, to get to the attorney for the probate, the son, to get to the title company. And we got that done like 10 or 15 minutes before the cutoff time to get the wire out to the foreclosing attorney. And he wasn't going to put off the auction, even though everything was set to close. And we literally got it done 10 or 15 minutes early. That one was quite interesting too. And I didn't pull out, I knew the judge because we went to college together. I wasn't going to pull that one out, but if he'd come out of his office and said, "Hey, how you doing? Hadn't seen you in a while. What are you doing here?" It's like, "You haven't signed my docs." So, but you got to do what you got to do. But I drove 2 hours back to the courthouse. I was out of town on another house deal, and I drove 2 hours back to make this deal happen on the day before the auction. You got to do what you got to do.
That's right.
And that's what most people won't do. It's like, well, my attorney's handling it. No, get out there and make things happen.
Yeah. Well, nobody takes care of your business like you do.
Nobody cares about your business but you. Yeah. And the other problem is most of the people out there don't even care about their own business. You know, people these days, they want it handed to them on a silver platter. You know, you got to work for it. What was it? I think it was Edison. Said something, or Ford quote was something like, opportunities present themselves every day, but they're wearing overalls and they look like work.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, work is a 4-letter word for sure.
Yeah, we don't use 4-letter words. I love saying this. People say, ask them how they're doing. It's like, good. It's like, no, they don't. That's a 4-letter word. Great, fabulous, fantastic, awesome. Just no 4-letter words in my presence. They laugh. It breaks that wall down. They laugh. If you get somebody to laugh, it breaks that wall down that you've got a seller, a buyer, whatever. Humor is the key to this business, I think.
I agree. I mean, it is about people skills, and being able to talk to people and relate to them. And it's amazing, especially nowadays when, what we talked about earlier about door knocking or cold calling or whatever. And I think that's why so many investors today are all on texting, because kids now are brought up to where they text. They don't talk on the phone. They would rather text someone than call.
And they have a hard time socializing, the social skills, conversations like we do. I think I told you before we started this about I use my mom a lot because my mom instilled, she was a stay-at-home mom. She did do some part-time work and stuff like that too. But she raised us. My dad was home at night and weekends and stuff like that. But he was a hard worker too. But my mother instilled a lot of, old school, values in me. And just, this deal that we're closing this afternoon, this wholesale deal, the lady's 80 years old, uses a walker, had 5 heart attacks already. And we were walking through her house and we're done looking at everything and walking back towards the carport door. And she goes, "Oh, I'm so slow. Go around me and just, go ahead." And I said, "Ma'am, if I were to go around you, you'd see me on the floor." And she said, "What?" She says, "My mama would step down from heaven and slap me in the back of the head for stepping in front of a lady."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "You're a lady. I will walk behind you and I don't care how slow it is. She goes, "I like you and I like your mom too. We're going to do business together." Wow. That was what it took.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I try to tell people when it comes to relating to buyers or sellers. We're in a real estate business, but it's not at all about the house. It's about the person in the house. That's what matters.
Well, it's really not about real estate at all. Real estate is just a commodity. Money, I learned this several years ago. I was in the investment banking business. Stocks and bonds are a commodity. Grain, cars are a commodity. Houses are just a commodity. This is about relationships. And, I've forgotten who said it. I think I'm drawing a blank on his name, The Banker's Code. Have you read that book, The Banker's Code?
Seems like I did. It's been a while.
Yeah, guy out on the West Coast, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. But anyway, this is a financing game, especially in sub 2. It's not a real estate. It's not anything. This is a financing game. We're buying financing, right, and we're selling with financing. And so we are the bank. We're arbitraging the money. We're arbitraging the interest rate. We're arbitraging the amortization chart. We're arbitraging the sale price. We're investment bankers in a roundabout way. That's what they do. So buy low, sell high, make money in between, make money on both sides, make money everywhere.
Yep, I totally agree. Randy, tell us, you've been doing this for a while. I know we talked a little bit about Clayton Sheets and that sort of thing, but really, if you had to describe how you learned to do what you do, what would you say?
Well, it's funny. Like I said earlier, I'm kind of a turtle. I grasp concepts slowly, but once I've got them, look out. In high school, my algebra teachers hated me because I was a little bit slower grasping it. But then once I grasped it, instead of doing a 15-step formula, I could do it in 4 steps. And they hated that. They wanted me to show all my work. And it's like, I can do the work in 4 steps, But the same thing in this is, I started investing in 1987. I was learning, I was reading, I was doing everything. It's 2008 while I was in Florida. I was going to the REIA meeting. I was going to all the REIA meetings. I was a knowledge junkie, but there was a guy named Chris McClatchy that taught the power of zero, and he taught a Saturday class. And literally everything I've been learning over the 10, 15 years, just scattered pieces of the puzzle. And while I'm sitting there listening to him, and it's just the way he said it, and I guess it was the right time at the right place, before my eyes, all the pieces of the puzzle just started coming together and fit right together in front of my eyes. I didn't even wait for him to do a sales pitch. I went to the back of the room and signed up for his coaching program, which just happened to be his first coaching class that he ever did. And I had the power of zero, learning about 0% financing. And so that was my first. Robin Thompson, when I lived in Arizona, she was actually my first program that I ever bought on rehabbing. I thought I wanted to be a rehabber. I don't like rehabbing. I do 1 or 2 a year, maybe 3, but they're usually light rehabs. I just, I'm not a big fan of dealing with contractors and the time frame that it takes to do it. But what they say, a fast nickel over a slow dime, something like that. A friend of mine says that all the time. But Robin Thompson, if you're into rehabbing, has been great. Chris McClatchy, I run and own the REIA here in Arkansas, so I've got relationships with a lot of different coaches or teachers across the country. You can pick up stuff from everybody. Ron LeGrand, he's a friend. Trying to think of some of the other ones. There've been so many that's come through my REIA that I built relationships with. And but Chris was probably my first serious coach, and I was going through a divorce at the time, so he was also kind of a psychologist to me, a therapist. So that's probably why that has special meaning for me too. I picked up a lot of stuff from you that was very profitable, like the 40-year stuff. I've got my own contracts, but I've taken bits and pieces out of your contract, said, hey, I need to insert this clause into mine. This guy out west named Pace Morby, I've learned some things from. I don't agree with everything he does, but he's got a lot of good information. Steve Trang is a guy I'm following right now, Real Estate Disruptors. And, he's one who I followed. Darren Hardy, which is a Success Magazine and TV show. I followed him for years, but I've never gone the next step. And Steve Trang convinced me to go the next step. And I'm in one of Darren Hardy's programs right now. And let me tell you, it is making a world of difference for me. Mindset, getting rid of the clutter in my life so I can focus more on making money and being successful. You got to find the right people. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of bad information, but people like you, people like Steve, people like Chris, they got a lot of good information. You can pick up nuggets, maybe not every day, but every month, every quarter, whatever, and each nugget's worth thousands and thousands of dollars. And so we all have a different twist on an old idea. So, and that's why I love getting into programs like yours, your podcast, your Facebook group and stuff like that. Sharing ideas is the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah, that's true. I know when I got started, that's what I did. I studied everybody. I bought courses and joined groups and I just said, I like this, I like that. And I just took it all and made my own deal with it. And just like you said, I like my contract, but I like this clause, I'm going to add it. So you just learn things like that.
Yep.
So you have to constantly be learning, that's for sure.
Yes.
And you have to vet who you're learning from. Some of that stuff sounds really good.
Totally. Yeah.
but in practical application, it's not so good, really. So you really have to, and you have to take the information you get, and if you're operating in certain markets, you have to make sure it's applicable and where because you can you can do something in Tennessee that if you try to do it in Colorado, you get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, every state law is a little bit different. I mean, even the terminology is different. Land contract versus contract for deed versus, I think in Ohio it's called something else.
Yeah.
You got to use the right terminology, or you could be in trouble if you get involved in a court hearing.
Yep, absolutely right. Well, Randy, tell me, we deal with a lot of new people. I know you train people. I know you run the REIA in Arkansas. So you see a lot of newbies, a lot of people just getting into real estate investing. We have those come into the forum each and every day. You just had to give new investors wanting to get started just some quick advice. What would you tell
Well, man, there's no quick advice other than the fact, always be trying to improve your negotiating skills, your listening and your talking, always. I mean, even me, 20, 30 years. I mean, I've been in sales pretty much all my life. Well, everybody's in sales all their life, but I've been in business sales all my life, investment sales right out of college and stuff. And I'm still, trying to improve my skills. That's number one. Going to the REIAs or the meetups and networking with people, you're going to find private lenders there. You'll find joint venture partners there, stuff like that. But find 2 or 3 good people to follow, like you, like a Chris McClatchy or a Robin, if you're wanting to do rehabbing or something. Get and learn the system. Most people buy a program, they put it on the shelf, they read through it once, and, this doesn't work after 30 days. I mean, this is not a 30, 60, 90-day deal. This is, just like, we're building this new carrot site. They will tell you up front, you're not going to see much benefit from the SEO for 6 to 12 months and maybe even 14 or 15 months if you do all this stuff right. And that's the same way in this business. You might get lucky and find a deal. I've got coaching students that have found deals their first week. Great. And then they might go a year before they get their second one. I said, you got lucky. I've had students that they go out there and they try to drive for dollars and say, they got 3 or 5 properties this week. And it's like, well, how long is it going to take you to get a deal, do you think? What's the average investor? How many properties do you have to have? 10 or 12? It's like, no, try 500 to 1,000, and then it's repeat marketing. You got to touch them 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times before they're going to call you back. You're in this for the long game. This is not the short game. You might get lucky and hit that $10,000, $20,000 deal quickly, but the odds are this is going to take you 90 days, 6 months, something like that. But you've got to constantly be learning and polishing your skills. That's the only thing I can say is don't give up, but you've got to put some time into this deal. And most people aren't willing to put the work and the time into it.
And it takes a while to get your systems in place too.
Yeah. And you're constantly going to be redoing your systems too. I'm redoing my systems for about the umpteenth time right now because I'm changing my business model. My goal is to add 100 sub-2s the next 12 months. To do that, I got a new CRM coming in. I got VAs coming in for cold calling. I'm doing a bunch of other stuff. I've been a one-man operation. Now I'm kicking it up to where I'm going to have 4 or 5 people involved because of the coming gold mine that I see coming.
Yeah, when all the forbearance ends and this COVID thing finally gets straightened out, and I think it's going to be pretty bloody out there.
Yep.
But that's that's opportunity. I mean, and I don't mean that in the predatory sort of way. There'll be a lot of people that need some help.
Yeah, we're helping people.
Yeah. There will be a lot of people. I mean, otherwise they're going to go to the auction. They're going to be foreclosed on. Their credit shot for the next several years. And a lot of people don't realize that when we buy subject to, I mean, not only are we able to stop a foreclosure, but we actually help them rebuild their credit by making timely payments for the next however many years we have that property.
Yep.
That's a testament.
Definitely. And that's, you've got, Darren Hardy had a quote is stop selling, get the mindset that you're helping people. When you change that mindset, you will find more deals.
That's for sure. And that's what I've been telling students for years. You first approach with a heart to help. And if there's any way you can help them save their home, help them. And don't charge them for it. It doesn't cost anything, a little bit of time to make a couple of phone calls to the bank, things that the homeowner is either too scared to do or doesn't have any idea how it works, and try to work out a plan for them if their circumstances have changed. But if they haven't and keeping the home is not an option, then you are an option to help them by buying it.
Yep, exactly. That's the first thing when I sit down with somebody that's, in a bad situation with their mortgage, is like, would you like to keep your house? Some of them say yes and some of them say no. The ones that say yes, it's like, okay, well, let's go through the different options for you. Let's see if we can try to help you keep your house. If that fails, I'm your plan B. But let's try to keep your house. I love people to keep their houses, but there's a percentage of them that can't.
Yeah, I mean, if they lost their job and they don't have a new one, if they're getting a divorce and they don't have two incomes, I mean, whatever. And your job is to make them, see. I mean, some people, they have a pipe dream of keeping their home when, if their situation that caused them to get in trouble hasn't changed, it's probably not going to work out.
Yep. Yep.
And you can gently, get them to see that a lot of times.
Yeah.
So, tell me, Randy, how can, I know you run the REIA there, you also do some coaching of your own. If someone wants to get in touch with you, if somebody in the Little Rock area wants to join your REIA or whatever, does your REIA have a website?
We have a website. Can't even talk this morning. You got me up too early. No, I'm usually up 4 or 5 hours before this started. ArkREIA.com. Yeah, ArkREIA.com for Arkansas Real Estate Investor Association.
That's ArkREIA.
Yep. Ark, as in the Ark of the Noah's Ark. ArkREIA.com. There's a phone number on there. You can join. Right now we're doing Zoom meetings because we can't do the physical meetings, and so we've opened everything up for free to everybody, hoping that they get enough, they see enough and get enough that when we don't go back physical, that they will join our group, hopefully. And but I got a phone number that comes to me from there. Of course, you can text me, you can email me, whatever. You see my background right now. Arkansas Property Buyers is my main company. And my phone number is there. You can check my website out. My new website, the Arkansas Property Buyers website, like I said, it's still being built out and everything, but the next week or two, you can see a lot of changes in that. But I'm excited about that website because we're doing stuff that I've never done before. So I'm very excited about that. Don't know when this is actually going to air, but one of the other things I'm getting ready to do is go on the radio, doing some radio advertising. And that will co-brand my website and, my status in the area and stuff. It's just your branding. And so we'll see how that goes. Nobody else is doing it here, so we're testing it out to see how that works. I'm one of those that believes you take a new trail. If it doesn't work, you back up to what was working and then try another one. If that doesn't work, you back up to what was working and then you take another trail. Constantly be testing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I heard Ron LeGrand talk about advertising on the radio. It's been some years ago, but I mean, he talked about it being affordable, and you want to make sure that you're on like the talk radio stations and things like that where people are tuned in and listening. Is that what you guys are doing? Are y'all doing talk radio? Oh, you're going on.
I actually have joined a quote coaching program. It's not really a coaching program, I don't think, but it's a learning program, and just the opposite. It's not a division, I don't guess, of Wholesaling Inc., but one of the guys that's in wholesaling has been doing radio advertising for 10 years. And so I joined that deal to try, and it's a step-by-step process. But talk radio is not where you want to be.
Really?
No. I mean, it can be, but I'm not giving out any secrets that he didn't talk about on a podcast that he was interviewed on. Is who is your demographic? If you're buying from older people, probates, and people in elder care type situation, they're listening to classic rock and older. They're not listening to hip hop and stuff like that. So that's the radio station you need to be on. Okay. Talk radio is a harder market to do. And so they don't suggest that, at least not in the beginning. And so figure out what your demographics are, where you're buying your houses and who you're buying it from, and then go to those stations. So we're just in the process of that. Next week, we're going to start negotiating with the stations, and they talk about how to negotiate to get deeper discounts than what off-the-shelf pricing is. And they've been very successful. They're in, from what I can see, them and their students are in over 100 markets now, and they limit it per location. So I'm kind of locked into the Central Arkansas market right now. And so we're going to try it out and see what happens, and we'll try it for 6 months to a year. And if it pays off, it'll probably pay off handsomely. And if it doesn't, well, back up and try something else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you said is totally true too. Those things that you do like that, it's sure it's to get deals, but it's also about being known in the area. When people think of selling a house, you want them to think of Randy.
Yep.
So,
yep.
He's the guy on the radio, you know. And,
yeah, you get that celebrity status if they've heard you on. He must be good if he's on the radio.
Oh yeah, and absolutely, yeah, he must be legit. He's on the radio.
Yep. So you know, whatever works, but you know, I've been very careful about. Well, I say that sometimes I make a lot of big mistakes, but you know, I was president of the State Landlord Association for 1.5 years here. I'm president of the ArkREIA here, so I've got some credibility stuff, but that's not publicly known. Nobody knows about those things. The radio will brand that out in the public domain, and we can use that for our marketing also, as seen or heard on so-and-so radio. So I don't know that I want to get into writing a book, but maybe I should, you know, so I can, quote, be #1 on Amazon for the one day, you know, that you pay for it. And as seen on CBS and Fox and whatever, you know, right. For the right price, you can get on all these things.
That's true.
But it's all branding.
Well, that's great. Randy, I thank you so much for spending, you know, over an hour with us today. I know you're a busy guy. You're doing a lot of stuff. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share with our listeners and me. I learned a couple of things today, too. So that's great.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me on here. I love talking this business. I love helping people, whether it be, like you said, new people. You know, I learn stuff from you. You may or may not see me pop in and out of your stuff from time to time. Sometimes I've got 10 minutes before I've got to run out the door, and I pop on to one of your coaching classes or something, and then I'm gone in 10 minutes, you know. So, but hey, you pick up stuff, you know. If I'm driving down the road and I can sign into something, I'm on there. So I love this stuff. I love your show. You know, I would tell everybody they need to get on this podcast and listen to stuff. You'll learn a lot of stuff from a lot of different people.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And again, we thank you for being here today. Guys, what Randy said, he runs the Arkansas ArkREIA, and you can visit them at ArkREIA.com. It's ArkREIA.com. And let me just repeat this, make sure I got it right. Because of the pandemic and everything, you guys are doing Zoom meetings, and you've opened that up for free. Anybody that wants to come can come and listen, correct?
Correct. All they have to do is sign up, and we do use passwords and stuff like that because we got hacked about a month ago and had some porn hackers jump in. We had to shut down the meeting and reopen it in a different link. But so we're a little bit, but we are requiring passwords. But yeah, it's all free.
Okay, great. Well, I think I'm going to jump on it for sure. So you guys want some ArkREIA training right now, you know, you can get on the Zoom calls for free. So don't miss out on that. So again, Randy, thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, Sub-Tours, that is it for this episode of the Sub-2 Deals Show podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode along with a complete transcript at sub2podcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute, and it helps others discover the show. You can subscribe as well as leave a rating and review by visiting Apple Podcasts and just do a quick search for the Sub-2 Deals Show. If you haven't yet, you can join our free Facebook Subject 2 group at sub2forum.com. You can also find lots more resources to help you grow your real estate investing business at sub2deals.com. So until next time, keep learning, keep talking to sellers, and you will buy some houses.